Victor's perspective. Twilla? I speak into my hollow.
Yes, CSS, she answers instantly.
You can drop the Albanian and Turkish. Also, we've got a name. Artemis Leandros is the only one who might still be out there. We're still digging up the bones of everyone else. I'll let you know when we're done. Over and out.
Understood, CSS. Over and out, she answers, before cutting the call.
I look at everyone undergoing the work of deconstructing the cairns, removing the bones and placing them into the boxes. It feels just a touch disrespectful to be unearthing the remains of war dead, but, well, if they have families. I'm sure any next of kin will long since have come to terms with their deaths, and being presented with a box of bones might just upset them, but I know if it were me. I remember going to New Australia one summer while I was at uni. I went to Red Sands graveyard with 3 million soldiers buried in it, took direction from the AI manning the entrance, and just ambled down the path with rows after rows after rows after rows after rows of headstones planted along it, until I got to my parents' graves. I remember being so happy to see that they were next to each other. I remember being so overwhelmed to be separated from them by only 2 meters, closer than I'd been in a lifetime. Even knowing there wasn't really a them to be separated from anymore. That they didn't exist, and all I was actually separated from was some bones that had once been inside them. It was still meaningful to me. I remember tracing my thumb over the letters of their names, my tears watering the red dust that the place was named for. I remember how much closure that helped me find, which is, obviously, why my therapist at the time suggested it. If we can give that feeling to someone else, I want to do it. I see shifting stones and call, Tamancha? He looks up and turns his inexpressive face toward me. I gesture him to come to me. He walks over. Could you take a look at the bones we pulled out so far and tell me how long ago you think the last one died?
No need, he states simply. I can tell that none of them died recently without looking closer than I already have.
How recently?
He shakes his head. I can't say more specifically than years. My experience with bones is with animal bones, exposed to the elements, not human bones buried in stones.
Fair enough. What about the meat? I say, gesturing to the shuttle, which they seem to have been using as a larder.
I have not seen it, he answers.
Take a look. Tell me how old you think the newest piece is. Oh, and check on Mouse while you're in there. Ask if she needs help with anything. He makes with the shuttle. I keep shifting rocks and delicately extracting bones, while I wait for him to get back. When he returns, he says,
When I asked Miss McLeod if she needed help, she said, not unless anyone else can, and then said lots of words I didn't understand the translations of.
Alright, no help needed then, I chuckle. The meat?
There's a haunch in there that I would guess to only be weeks old.
You're sure? I say, agog. A tiny frown touches his face.
No, I am not sure. That's why I said guess. It seems like it's weeks old, but it's also meat from an animal I've never encountered, on a planet I've never been to. So, based only on my experience of other kinds of meat, how it's been cured as well as the temperature and humidity in that larder, I would guess its condition to be the result of only weeks of storage.
Right, sorry, my bad. But if you're right, the chances of us finding a survivor just shot up. He nods. Later. Bones recovered and jars labelled. Everyone except Mouse, still working on the AI, gathers in front of the craft. Alright. Everyone who reckons they have wilderness survival and traversal experience, raise your hand, I instruct. All hands except Fran's go up. Everyone who would call that experience in-depth or extensive, keep your hand in the air. Leon and Ziva's hands go down. Zon's wavers but stays up. That tells me everything I need to know. Alright. Fran?
Yes, Vic. Yes, CSS, she responds,
awkwardly snapping to attention in her bulky durasteel. I want you to stay here. Guard Jenny from any local fauna or other threats. Stay outside and stay visible. If someone you don't recognize approaches, contact Twitter and then me in that order. Is that understood? I ask.
Yes, CSS.
I turn to Ziva and say, Ziva, I'm pairing you with Steve. I turn to Leon. Leon, I want you with Zon and Tymantia. I turned to Samus. Samus, you with me? Tamancha?
Yes,
he responds. Which direction looks like it has the most promise in terms of foraging game to you? If you were dropped on this spot and needed to keep yourself alive, where would you go? I ask.
South,
he answers instantly. And south would be... Behind you, mate! Interjects Steve with a smirk. Alright, thanks, I say, before turning back to Tamancha and asking, which way it looks like it has the least promise? Unlike the first time, he has to think about that, glancing around to scan the horizon.
Northwest,
he says, hesitantly, looking around the side of the ship.
No, not northwest, west,
he decides, sounding more certain. Alright, I'll just call Twiller to ask how much time we have until dark. About 18 hours, mate, communicates Steve. I frown. How do you... He cuts me off. When we got here, the sun was there. He points to an empty patch of sky. It's there now, and we've been here an hour and a half, so... He traces a knife through the sky with his finger. 18 hours, he declares. Alright, if you're certain, I say, considering whether to call Twiller just to be sure, but deciding against it. I don't need to demonstrate mistrust. So, we've got plenty of time. We're about to sort you out to see if we can find evidence of the last survivor. I want everyone to set 8-hour alarms on their hollows. That should give you 2 hours of contingency time to get back here before dark. Tamancha, Zon, and Leon, I want you to head south. Steve and Ziva, you guys head east. Me and Samus will head north. Steve and Tamancha, you two have more experience in how to track, so you'll lead your teams, but since you don't have guns or plasma weapons, it's the job of Zon, Leon, and Ziva to protect you. Do not approach local fauna. If you are approached by local fauna, try to scare them off, but don't hesitate to shoot if they won't be deterred. I assume no one here needs to be told not to run from predators. You'll only mark yourself as prey to them, and you're very unlikely to outrun them. If a party member is injured, comm to let everyone else know your location. Turn around if possible, stay put if not. If your alarm goes off, turn around. If you are separated from a party member, comm to let us know and try to rendezvous back at the lifeboat. No one is to be a hero. No one is to take unnecessary risks. Does everyone understand their instructions? Everyone nods. Alright, move out. Later. Me and Samus have made our way down the north side of the bluff, and left it a long way behind us. We're walking along the bare rock at the top of a 9 to 10 metre tall cutbank cliff. Below us is a deep-looking, fast-moving river with thick forest on its far shore. We've been walking for a few hours and have barely spoken a word. Samus really feels like she has something she wants to say. It's subtle, but I see a bit more of a glare in her face than normal for when we're working. I'm about to ask her to spit it out when she says, "You were a prick to Toon earlier." "I know," I answer. "No you don't," she snarls. Stopping dead in my tracks, I turn towards her, my mouth agape, and say, "Excuse me?" Her face is twisted into a scowl, and her teeth are bared in anger as she says, "I know that I know. That's the I know that my piece of shit father gave me every time I point out some crime we were committing. That's the I know of a smug, sanctimonious little man who thinks he made a hard choice, but chose the less evil of all the available options. A man who chose the same again. That's the I know that made me ignore the fact that I've been born into a gang of criminals for 18 years. The last time he gave me that I know was when we'd undertaken a job smuggling stolen military-grade firearms to New Rhineland. I knew those guns weren't for self-defense or hunting. I knew we were going to be putting weapons into the hands of violent thugs. He gave me the I know, and in that moment he died to me. That evening I contacted the UTC and spent the rest of the voyage playing nice with the crew, with my family, never letting on that I was selling them out. So don't give me that I know. Feeling extremely attacked at what seems like a very unfair comparison, I answer, "What was I supposed to do? You think I should have let her come down here and risk getting attacked by traumatized castaways?" "Obviously not," she scoffs, rolling her eyes in contempt. "Then what? What should I have done? Tell me." She gives an angry sigh before answering. "What you did isn't the problem, it's how you did it. You could have asked to have a private word with her. You chose to do it publicly. You could have provided your reasons up front. You chose to make her ask, and then cut her off with the answer. You could have framed it as a discussion. You chose to issue it as an order. An order you gave with a tone that said, 'This is my decision, and it's final,' which might have been justified if lives were hanging in the balance, but any survivors will have been down here longer than you or I have been alive. It's not like they couldn't wait 5 more minutes for you to have that conversation without being a prick about it." While she was speaking, She advanced to me in a way that would have been unnerving even if she didn't have an assault rifle slung across her chest. She punctuates the word prick by taking her dominant left hand off the grip and jabbing her finger into my chest. Adrenaline buzzes through my veins and defenses flood into my mind, the main one being, "You're very much not taking your own advice here. You're being quite a prick to me and explaining how I was the one to turn." She nods. "I am. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do situations. The fact that I'm not taking my own advice doesn't mean you shouldn't." I take a moment to actually dissect the content of what she's saying, and I realise, "You're right, Samus. I'm sorry." The anger falls from her face as she quips, "Now there's 5 words my father never said to me. It's not me you need to apologise to, though, is it?" I nod, taking out my holo, and turning to continue our trek. "Yeah, I'll message Toon. Tell her I need to— Whoa!" While my eyes were on my holo, and not on where I was going, my right foot contacted a wet rock that had much less purchase than I was relying on it to have. My leg flies out from under me towards the river, pulling me along after it. My chest impacts the hard stone, and I'm able to feel the elastic deformation of my ribcage as the wind is knocked out of me. I hear my shotgun clatter to the ground. A few instances of sliding inescapably down the rock, before suddenly there's nothing beneath me. I fall for what adrenal dump makes feel like an eternity. Then, I plunge into the ice-cold, rapid-flowing water.